Okay, well, we've hit a special part of the year where I'm going to review all three tenses. We're not going to actually look at the future proche, the one with alle. We're just going to look at our three tenses, meaning the present, the past, and the future. So let me start off with, we're going to use the same sentence every single time. So to start off, I'm going to start with the sentence, I speak. So, je parle. We'll say, je parle le français. So this is the present tense. I'm doing it right now. How did I get that tense? So just to review really quick. To conjugate verbs in the present tense, meaning something that's happening currently, you have two choices. One, you have regular verbs, verbs that follow a pattern, yes, and then verbs that are irregular. There is no pattern, you simply have to memorize them. So if I was to do a quick explanation of regular verbs, that would be, first, you have three sets of verbs. You have verbs in the ER, you have verbs in the IR, a middle group, and then the smallest group are verbs that end in RE. And the first thing that you do when you want to conjugate a regular verb is you're going to drop that ER, the IR, and the RE. And you're going to add your endings based on the pronoun or the noun. So if I showed you and reminded you of the beautiful chart that we had back in French 1, our endings match our pronouns. Oop, too thick. What am I doing? Let's go back to this little thin one. And so if we wanted to put our pronouns here, we would have je, tu, il, elle, on, but I'm not going to write them all, nous, vous, and ils and elles. Again, I'm not writing them all. So our endings then would be for ER would be E, ES, E, ONS, EZ, and ENT. Then IR is going to be IS, IS, IT, ISSONS, ISSEZ, and ISSENT. And then IR, or RE, my bad, would be S, S, and then nothing, ONS, easy, it is easy, and then ENT. That's an O. Okay, that looked hoarse. All right, so that is for regular verbs. It's nice and easy. There is a little exception to the rule. If I could just remind you of that exception, the new verbs, the new pronoun, any verbs that end in GER, remember only for the new, you're going to add an E, and then CER, you're going to add a little accent on the C. So that is only for new, and that's an exception to the rule. All right, irregular verbs. Irregular verbs do not follow this pattern. No, no, no. There's no pattern at all. It's horrible. You just have to memorize them. So if the verb is irregular like aller, you simply have to memorize it. Je vais, tu vas, il va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont. Now you know why I've had you memorize these pronouns in this order right here, because it's the same order every single time. And then être, we sang the song. It would be suis, some, et, and some. And then we'll pick one more irregular verb, avoir. Obviously, there's a million more, but these are our main ones. It's a, ons, ez, and ent. So that's kind of just a little quick recap of present tense. Let's go ahead and look at passé. If I was going to take that same sentence in the passé composé, so our passé composé, which is our past, and my sentence was I speak French, I would say j'ai parlé le français, because I have to have a little helping verb. I have to have what's called an auxiliary verb. And they do that in French. They have a helping verb. In English, sometimes in tenses, we have a helping verb, but in French, they have one. And there's going to be a choice. So if you remember our fancy choice, we have either avoir or we have être. When we have to decide which helping verb to use, which auxiliary verb we're going to use our little house rules. So avoir is être and être. So those are our two helping verbs. Most verbs use avoir. Almost all of them will use avoir. And then the other verbs, there's 16 of them plus 1. If you remember, they're Mrs. Dr. Vandertramp, which was the acronym for the 16 verbs. So I'll just write that down here. Mrs. Dr. Vandertramp. So these are the 16. And then there's one little extra one that kind of goes in between both, and that is passé, and it kind of bounces between the two of them based on the meaning. But it rarely comes up, but there's some other verbs that do that. So just to remind you that there are irregular verbs and there's regular verbs, just like there is in both, on all the tenses. And for purposes of speeding this up, you either have to change the verb and it's regular, and so you're going to change it this way. You're going to use the E. Oh, no, we don't want that. We want black. Beep. We want either ER, or we have IR, or we have RE. Those are our regular verbs, and they change with this pattern. So if it is a regular verb, then you're going to use the sunshine rays of Madame, which indicates beauty and all that fun stuff. So regular verbs are easy. We want to always use the sun pattern to change this second verb right here. It's always to change this verb. For first steps, we always do is step 1, which house? Which house? Is it avoir or is it être? How do you decide that? That's the very first step. You have to know what your helping verb is. So how do you do that? You simply look on your Mrs. Dr. Vandertramp. If it is one of those 16 verbs, then you're going to use être. If it is not one of those, then you're going to use avoir. And like I said, most verbs are avoir. So if it's 16, then you're going to pick être. Once you've decided which house, you're going to go to step 2, and step 2 is how are you going to change the verbs. So is it a regular verb, meaning it's a sunshine ray, or is it an irregular verb? So basically what you have to do is either use Google or look on your house or your notes, and I will show you the basic irregular verbs. So just there's a few. Obviously I gave you way more, but just Google it. So to start, avoir, here I'll put them up here because there's not enough room. Avoir is irregular and it changes to EU. Être, ironically, is not in its own house. It changes to été, it looks like summer. Faire changes to fait. And we'll just stop with those. The other house, the être house, there are 5, and it is venir, it is devenir, it is revenir, and it is mourir, and it is naître. So I'll write those over here. So there is only 5 in the être house, and that is devenir, venir, revenir, mourir, and naître. So you got to check your notes on those and how they change. So they do not follow the sunshine rays of Madame. They are irregular. And I'm not going to write those out because there's so many of them. And then we have step 3. So once you have picked your house and you know whether it's regular or irregular, you're going to put it all together. Step 3. So you're going to conjugate your helping verb first, and then you're going to conjugate or change your actual verb. So let's take a look at how that would look. So If I was trying to decide I speak French, the same sentence that we're using every single time, let's ask ourselves the questions. Step 1. What house is speak in? Speak is parler. There's our bell. So, parler is in the avoir house, so I make myself a little note in my head, and parler is a regular verb. So now I know, so I'm going to go avoir, and then I'm going to go regular, and then I'm going to go and then change my verb with the sunshine rays of madame. So here is the I spoke French. Where do you put the negative? I think you remember. It is around your first verb. So our negative always goes here. So let me go back to my black pen and go, oops, that's not black. Je, then ne, black, pas, and then parler. So as you can see, my ne pas goes around the verb, the first verb. We have 2 verbs in there. We're going to go around our helping verb. All right, let's keep go future simple. So the future simple, I will speak French. So I'm going to write the je down. How do you do your future simple? You're going to take your infinitive and you're going to add your endings, A-I, A-S, A, O-N-S, E-Z, and then don't forget it's O-N-T. That was rather large. So here is my infinitive, and I'm going to simply add my ending, le français. And they say that this is the easiest tense in the French language. As you can see, super easy, no decisions. The only thing you need to be careful of is if the verb is irregular. So if I wanted to say she will have, I've got to pick that irregular stem from my verb list and my notes, and then add the endings, elle aura un chien. She will have a dog. So this is for irregular. And that's it for today.